Ooh, this is my name is David. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, David.
And thank you for sharing, Kelsey. Thank you for sharing. I'm just as nervous as you are. My sobriety date is 1/15/1990, and it's like, wow. I still get nervous when folks ask me to speak. It's just one of those things. So, um, a little bit about me. I was born in the Pacific Northwest, born in Portland, Oregon. Um, my father worked on the railroad, and my mom was a housewife. And uh, I heard Kelsey talk about some things. I don't know if my dad was alcoholic. I learned later on that he drank once when he was 17 or 18, and he never drank after that. So, uh, um, but I don't think I acquired that ability. Uh, my mom, who had mental illness, um, I think she drank a little bit here and there, but it was just one of those things. Um, I was thinking about what I was going to share on, and sometimes you flip this book open, and I ran across that one chapter where they talk about the vicious cycle, and they're referring to um, drinking and using and or other mind altering substances. But I want to share a little bit about how I grew up. My father worked at railroad, and we didn't see him a lot. And when he was home, it was kind of like, um, yeah, that fussing and arguing, and I don't know what was going on, but he moved us out to Lake Grove, Oregon, which we were the only black family there, and a lot of people who are from Oregon, they never heard of Lake Grove, but you have to be of a certain age. From what I understand, it was incorporated by Lake Oswego, so um, it disappeared. Um, uh, I was a pretty rambunctious kid. Um, I did a lot of crazy stuff, but at the age of 4, um, I burned myself. We had an open pit. Uh, they had open pit fires, and I was out there playing with an umbrella and swinging it around, and it was plastic, and that hot plastic hit my jeans, and I had like third-degree burns, and
Yeah.
I want to say that I was the reason that um, we moved to Seattle because they had one of the best burn centers in the United States at that time. And they had Children's Orthopedic Hospital also. Um, and this just came to me, and I'll say it like it came to me um, yesterday. I locked myself out of the house. And I hadn't locked myself out of the house in a long time. And I hadn't never locked myself out of the house sober. This is the first time. In 33 years, I locked myself out of the house. And I had my daughter's dog with me, so it started to rain, and my son's old car is out behind the house, so me and the dog went and sat in the car. And I was sitting in the car, and I had one of those, uh, I, I want to call it a God shot, And I was sitting there, and I was saying, what am I going to talk about when I go to the meeting tomorrow, and da 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 da. And I was sitting there, and just out of this little quiet moment, it dawned on me that 33 plus years ago, I had sat in my car that didn't run, and I was just wanting to be sober. And for whatever reason, I said, well, at least I'm not homeless. You know, I don't know where that came from. I said, I'm not homeless. I'm locked out of my house, but I'm not homeless, you know. And so I had to work on that patience and tolerance thing. I called my wife. She was at the hairdresser looking beautiful.
Yes.
And okay. And so I called my daughter, and she was at work. And so I said, you're just going to have to be patient and wait. And so while I was sitting there, I thought about how I had burned my leg at 4 years old. And I don't know why I said, I'm the reason why, that what was your part in whatever happened. I said, I'm the reason why my parents moved to Seattle, Washington, and I said, so they really did love me, you know. And then I thought about, well, wait a minute. There was also a windstorm that happened, and this large tree fell on top of the house, and there was a hole in the roof. So maybe it wasn't just me, Maybe the hole in the roof had something to do with that, And it was a good time to move to Seattle and get this kid taken care of too, and when I think about those kind of things, I have this thing in my head that tells me a lot of time since I've been in recovery, I have this connect with a higher power. And I just have that feeling that, I'm gonna be okay, another example of that is before I move on is I was over at my brother-in-law's house and a hummingbird brushed my shoulder. And I called my wife and I was telling her, wow, I said, I'm really got this spiritual thing going on. I'm one with, and I turned around and she was at work and I was on my way to work. And before I got to work, I had cussed out about 5 or 6 different people. And so I had to call her back and tell her, well, maybe not. Maybe I need to rethink some of this stuff. So anyway, my life was pretty beat up before I was 8 years old. I burned myself and went to the hospital for that and da 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 da. By the time I got out the hospital, fell out of a swing and popped a hole in the back of my head, and so I'm back in the hospital for that, and just I don't know if I was adventurous or clumsy. I really don't know. And so by the time I hit first grade, I was that kid. I always wanted to go to school, and my oldest brothers, they woke me up and said, hey, it's time to go to school, and that was the second day. And they said, I rolled over and looked at them and said, I've been to school, so that's over with, And if you didn't think I wasn't going to school, if you didn't drop me off in the classroom, I remember playing hooky in the first grade. How many kids run away from school in the first grade? So I had a lot going on. I don't know what it was about. I don't know if it was the insecurity of my parents' relationship or I was always not just me, but me and my brothers and sisters, we were always in the middle of some kind of chaotic drama going on. This one lady used to babysit us when my mom was, I don't know if she was had another nervous breakdown and she was in the hospital, or if she was off having another brother and sister. But I know that we used to call this lady Auntie, and come to find out, it was my father's girlfriend. And when my mom came back, it was like, oh, so she's here again. It's like, wow. So there was a lot of emotional and the physical stuff I pretty much did to myself, with a lot of that emotional scarring when you're a kid. And my father, uh, he moved back to Chicago, and one year he came and said, let me take him to Chicago, and my mom said fine. And so I was supposed to be there for the summer and wound up there for a whole school year. And the FBI were called, and that made me most wanted. They told him, you got 48 hours to get him back to Seattle, and that was my first plane ride, 1958. And got back to Seattle, and uh, my mom had another nervous breakdown. She had another child, and we wound up in the foster system. My brothers and sisters um, were they just kind of chopped us up, two over here, two over there, two over there. And I didn't know that we had a blended family until I was probably 8 or 9 years old. I remember going, when I was in Chicago, going over uh, my oldest brothers. They said, we're going over to see mother. And I said, okay. And when we got there, I said, that's not my mother. And they said, well, we didn't say your mother. We said we're going to see our mother. And so, uh, when you have 10 brothers and sisters, yeah, I had two on my dad's side and then two on my mom's side before they had six of us. So, um, but we were always just brothers and sisters. Um, the the problem started with the alcohol is when I was in one foster home, and they let me drink, and I drank some type of whiskey, and I got drunk, and as usual, when kids get drunk, they misbehave. And I was told you need to uh, go somewhere and lay down before there's consequences. And so, I followed those instructions. I went and laid down. Um, it got rough when I got older. When um, circumstances caused me to leave that particular foster home, and I wound up going to a boys' home. And that might have been one of the best things that ever happened to me, even though I was working on abandonment issues and self-esteem and all that stuff. My dad had died. My mom, who I didn't see for almost 34 years. I think I was 43 or 44 the next time I saw her physically. Um, and that alcohol thing. Uh, when I had those drinks, I just felt a little bit different. Um, it's like, what the heck. And we talk about hope, and and I was always hoping that maybe my mom or my dad would show up, but it didn't happen. And so, you do the best you can with what you got. And so uh, that boys' home was a good thing for me. Um, there was an old timer, Mr. Slater. He was an old miner from Montana, and he was a miner, a rancher. He could do just about anything. And we would go camping and hiking and fishing, and he taught us how to shoot guns. And and this old guy didn't look like me, little short white dude that looked like Popeye the Sailor, but he was instrumental in me learning how to do some things growing up. But when I got those chances to drink, you know, um, it was never a good thing. I would drink to black out. I didn't plan it that way, but that's how it always happened. Um, uh, Alcohol was always involved. When I was in the military, uh, uh, they said, now this is, they said, I don't, I'm just going by what they said at my court martial, that I incited a riot, which I don't think so. They sent me to Jacksonville, North Carolina, and in the early 70s, being from the Pacific Northwest, I ran with white, black, Native American, and down south. But in 1971, it just wasn't that way. We had black and white Marines on base killing each other, and and um, it was just part of what was going on. And I drank through all of that. Uh, I got an honorable discharge. I had a colonel from Kentucky, and he was a good old boy, but there was just something about, he said, when I look at your record, he said, you were real cool up until this point, and he said, so I'm gonna put you in the brig so I'll know where you're at. Because when I wasn't in the brig, I was in trouble. Um, uh, I got married at 21 and I was drunk. Um, my honeymoon, uh, Thunderbird wine, and oh boy, it wasn't a nice wedding. It wasn't. They asked me and my wife to leave North Carolina. She was a firecracker, but we were both drinking. She had stabbed a young lady who slapped her off of a bar stool, and they said one of the conditions, you're getting out of the military and you're taking her with you. We don't want either one of you guys around here. And so we rode 4 days and 4 nights to get here to Seattle, and the drinking was always in the middle of it. The things that I regret the most are the way that I treated her when I was drinking, and the blessing in all of this is before she passed from cancer, she was 15 years clean and sober. Um, and we always talk about all the craziness, but I think the most important thing for me today is the joy of recovery. Uh, I've had more wonderful experiences in recovery. Uh, I got married, and we went on a wonderful uh, honeymoon, and I wasn't drunk. We disagreed on a few things, but you know, almost 21 years later, we're still disagreeing on stuff. My grandkids and my great grandkids, me and John, we were just looking at pictures and stuff. Those kids have never seen me. My children have never seen me drunk. I've been a pretty good example for my son, even though he still drinks. And that's something that he'll have to work on. My daughters, all three of them, they drink, but they manage. They manage better than the son. He's really my number one concern. But I think he's gonna be okay. And that's, I'm doing what a lot of folks did for me. They prayed for me. I mean, I never thought that I could stand here and say, been clean and sober 33 years. You know, the old timers, they said, "Hey, son, here's some things that we suggest you do." I was sitting around whining about, uh, I want a house, I want a house, I want a house. And this old guy, Albert Dowdy, may he rest in peace. And the only reason I mention his last name is because he's passed. So um, uh, he says, if you want a house, he says, then stop chasing these girls and save some money and buy a house. And the house that we're in today is the first house that I ever bought. And me and my wife were real happy in that little house. When we got married, we bought a big old 5-bedroom, 3 full bath house because we had children, and it's too big for us, so it's on the market. And hopefully, in the next week or so, somebody's going to say, we signed right here and you no longer have this headache. I mean, I never would have dreamt, that coming from the basement of a crack house, that was my last place of residence. I was in that basement, and I just, like I heard this young lady say, I just wanted to die. And you hear that a lot. You hear that in the rooms a lot. I don't know. I don't know how to stop. I can't stop. You know, um, and my thing was, if there is a God, I need some help. And you hear that. That's pretty common around the rooms. It could be the Great Spirit, Buddha, Allah, higher power. You hear people talk about, make your higher power doorknob, you know, but to each his own. Um, I found a higher power that I'm comfortable with, and it works for me. But just this one little, and it's just a sentence, and I can identify with it. Um, the guy, it's in A Vision of Recovery. The guy says, well, buddy, I guess there's just you and me. And he says, believe it or not, it worked. The feeble request to God worked. I was honest and really wanted God's help. From that day on, I knew that I had found a higher power and that he would help me. And my thing was, if there is a God, you know, um, they say just have the faith of a mustard seed. And if you don't know how small a mustard seed it's tiny. And I used to hear that when I was a kid and I didn't understand it. Them old folks would say, just have faith, baby, just have the faith of a mustard seed, It's like, I was whining about something, because they would say things like, you crying about not having no shoes and that baby over there ain't got no feet. And I say, I don't care about that baby not having, That's not my concern. My concern is I want some shoes. Because I was that I'm serious. I was that kid that my mom didn't have any money to buy me any shoes. And my brother, he had shoes, but my brother's feet were way bigger than mine. And she would stuff newspaper in his shoes and send me to church. And then that kind of stuff just kills your little spirit. All the other kids got nice shoes. Um, just them little things. When I got sober and the guys would be sitting around talking about they had these kind of tennis shoes or they had Stacy Adams and which were dress shoes. And I'd sit up there for the longest and I was like 5 years sober. And I was talking about, yeah, I had some Stacy's and that's not my story. I never had any Stacy's. I was lying about that stuff at 5 years sober, because I would always save enough money to buy some wine. If I could have some wine, to hell with some Stacy's, and because I'm a drunk, and one day it just a light went on, and I said, you don't have to lie about this anymore. And so what I did was Sears out in Renton was going out of business. Uh, and they had a pair of Stacy's on sale. And I went and bought them Stacy's. I still got them Stacy's. And that was 30 years ago. You know what I mean? So I don't have to lie about having no Stacy's anymore. And the longer that I stay in recovery, there's just things that I don't have to do or I don't have to feel a certain way. I knew that. How much time we got? 3 minutes. Oh, good. I knew that when and this has a lot to do with the integrity of the men and women in the rooms. When I met my wife, we went to a wedding, and when I walked in there was three other women that I had slept with. And I felt real crunchy about that, and I hadn't slept with all of them at the same time. It was just the idea that I had slept with all of these women. And I didn't want to be that guy anymore. And when I asked this woman to marry me, I was serious about that, We have a lot of fun. I think we share a lot of love, not only for